Welcome to Community Chats, bringing you stories and insights from the heart of Community Living Toronto, a non-profit organization that proudly supports people with intellectual disabilities and their families. We will focus on stories of belonging and inclusion and topics of interest from communities across Ontario and the world. From uplifting moments to breaking barriers, from innovative policies to ideas from leading thinkers, we continue to advocate for inclusive communities and support the rights and choices of people with an intellectual disability.
Hi, everyone. This is Brad Saunders. I'm the CEO at Community Living Toronto, and welcome to our Community Chats podcast. Each of us, to varying degrees, thinks each day about what the future might bring. What job will we have? Who will my friends be? Will I be safe? Will I be happy? Where will I live? What would happen if I have a crisis in my life? Who will take care of me? For those of us who have children, those considerations are amplified. For parents of children with an intellectual disability, there is a lot of time spent thinking, planning for, and wondering, even worrying about what the future will bring. We had a great conversation and learned a lot about how much time Melissa and Jim invested in Michael as he grew up, how important a part of their family he is, and how they have supported him throughout his life. Michael is a longtime participant with Community Living Toronto, and I really enjoyed learning more about his journey. Now I bring you my conversation with Melissa. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us again on our Community Chats podcast. Really happy today to be talking to Melissa Wilson, who's been involved with Community Living Toronto for many, many years. And we're going to have a conversation about her journey, what's been going on, what sort of her experiences have been with Community Living Toronto and other parts of the service system in Toronto. And then her and her family are about to undertake a big move, so we'd love to hear a little bit more about that. So with that, I introduce Melissa Wilson. Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Great. Now, for those of us that don't know you well and your family, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you are in the city and a bit about your story?
Okay, sure. We moved from Alberta, actually, to Toronto when our son Michael was 6 months old and not yet diagnosed in any way. I'd had 2 kids before him, so I knew things weren't exactly right. Okay. But we had a lot of visits to a lot of different health people and didn't get very much good information for a long time. We moved here because my husband was transferred here. He worked for IBM for many years, and as maybe everybody doesn't know, IBM stands for I've been moved. So
I did not know that. That's good to know.
So we came from Edmonton, Alberta, in January of 1969, would you believe?
Wow.
So, yeah. So as I said, Michael was 6 months old at that point and had 2 older brothers who were 3 and 5 at the time. Mm-hmm. So we have been here since then. Eventually, we got hooked up with the association, which was then called, can I even remember?
It probably wasn't a nice name. Yeah.
Well, it is what it is,
It is what it is.
I mean, the actual truth is, it was maybe more true then than it is now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've been attached there. We moved to Ottawa in 1972, mm-hmm. where our neighbor knew about, by then Michael, in actual fact, what the doctor who finally said, yes, there's something wrong with him, said, well, you've waited too long, so we can't do anything about it.
Wow.
Now.
So maybe we could just ask you about that a little bit. So you moved here in 1969. You knew that something wasn't quite the same as your other kids with Michael. And then we were able to find a doctor here, or a pediatrician, or somebody that, what was that experience like?
Well, it's a long time ago and I'm fuzzy on details, but we did we did go to a number of different, I did whatever research was available, and eventually came to a doctor who gave me that line, which obviously I will never forget.
Yeah.
I had been trying for the whole 2.5 years that we'd been here to find out what was going on. And so anyway, so we did get connected then to the association, and as I said, we moved to Ottawa in 72, right, when Michael was about 3.5. And our next door neighbor there was familiar with a program called the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential, which is also known by the Domandela-Catto method of treatment for handicapped kids. We went down to Philadelphia in March of 1972 with Michael and spent a week down there getting diagnosed and having their people whose entire existence was based on improving the human condition. They also ran a school for normal children where they taught them reading and math at about age 2. And reading and math were part of Michael's program at that point. Anyway, we did that program, started with a week for diagnosis, and then went down every 2 months. We did that program with him. Basically, I did that program with him. It constituted 18 what they call sequences a day. And that was 15 or 18 things that we did in prescribed order to stimulate the brain cells that were close to the damaged brain cells. That was their whole.
That was the philosophy. So that sounds like a pretty intensive program to run. So, and you were doing most of that yourself with you and Michael in your home, and then down to the facility every once in a while.
Yeah. We had ladders and boulders and all kinds of equipment that encouraged him to do whatever it was that we were concentrating on at the moment. And if you know anything about the program, it would be patterning, which that word was bandied about quite a bit in those days. And we did that. And that involved having 40 people a week in our home to help me with the program. And a pattern is where you put in the movements that a child would normally do to learn to crawl and to walk and so on. So we had a lot of good community support there.
That's great.
So we lived in Ottawa for 2 years, and then we moved back to Toronto and went up and down the street where we lived and asked people if they would be willing to help, and got another 40 people signed up.
40?
So, 40 a week. 40 a week. People would come in the morning. 4 people would come in the morning. Takes 5 people to do a pattern. So 4 people would come in the morning. We would do one pattern. There has to be half an hour in between. So in between, we did the prescribed thing for the sequences, and then another pattern at the end of the half hour. So 4 a day. 4 people would come in the morning. 4 people would come in the afternoon. And so we did that program for almost 5 years.
Wow.
At which point, when we started, there was basically nobody home. Michael knew who the family were, and there was a little bit of reaction, but not very much. The first thing that I knew that he recognized was the Sesame Street music, which happened to be in a place where he could not see it. And he very slowly turned his head around to see where that music was coming from. So obviously we'd played that a lot up till then. Anyway, so by the time we finished that program, he was walking on his own with some He had boots, customized boots,
Okay.
because one of his legs is shorter than the other.
Right.
And but he went from hanging on to ropes hanging off a ladder,
Mhm.
and one day he just walked off the end of the ladder. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
So we did that program for those years.
For the
and
5 year. Now, do you give the program a lot of credit for
Absolutely.
him being able to? So it was very effective for you. It
I
worked for Michael.
I think he never would have been able to walk any
Okay.
other way. It
Okay.
was intensive and basically all day, every day
Yeah.
for those,
with
you know,
volunteers
yeah, with
who are neighbors.
volunteers.
40 people. That's amazing.
Yeah, but mostly Michael and me. So,
Okay. Yeah.
what, half an hour, well, it turns into closer to an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. But in order to get through 18 sequences, where
Yeah.
you're going across a ladder, and I could have got out the list. I didn't think of that.
No, it's fine. It's
Just to give you a better idea about what a sequence looked like. But it
Sure.
included math and reading. And in fact, let me talk about the math for a
sure.
second.
Let me ask you though, just
Yeah.
what part of the city did you live in? I didn't catch that when you moved back in 74.
Into North York.
North York. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, the 401 in Leslie.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. Sorry, you were going to talk about math.
Okay, so their definition of math is that if you learn the numbers, then that's not real math. That's the symbols, of course, which we all
Okay.
know. So we started with dots, red dots on white poster board,
Hmm.
and you start with 1 to 20, and you show one of those cards and say, this is 1. And you do that up to 20, and eventually he learns the difference.
Now,
And
are you doing this at the same time as you're doing the physical work
This is
as well?
part-
So that this
yeah.
is one of the sequences that you're.
this is part of the sequence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is part of the sequence. And so by the time that he was finished, he can tell the difference on a card that's 14 inches square between 99 dots and 100.
Really?
And we hold up 2 and say which one is, and he picks.
Okay.
And so that was quite fascinating. And by the end, we were doing operations, so adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing with those
Right.
dots.
Right.
And eventually we turn it into the numbers. So this is 3, and then you turn over
This is what the number
and
3
then
looks
you have
like,
the
kind of
number
thing.
on the other
Okay.
side. So
Okay.
this is 3 and this is 3.
Okay.
So that's just kind of an interesting
Yeah,
sideline.
that's very interesting. So now Michael's school age at this point, right? So he's 5 or 6, all the way up to age
Yeah.
10 or so. Was he going to school at the same time as this, or
No.
were you
Oh, no.
you were doing it all home
All
based?
at home. No
Okay.
time for school if you're doing 18 sequences a
Yeah,
day.
no, I
These
wouldn't
kids
think.
get supper. And in fact, our older 2 sons had half an hour's worth of stuff they had to do after school every day with them,
Okay.
or else they didn't get dinner, did they? So,
No, it's-
so that's the way it went. And an interesting sidelight of that is that those are his 2 favorite people in the world, of course.
Oh, nice.
And we had a daughter and a son later on, and he doesn't much like them still.
Oh, really?
Yep. So Stephen Warren had a lot of input with him and helped him with the program. And in fact, what happened was when Rebecca was born, that's when he went to school. So
Okay.
he did not any longer have me for 12 hours a
12
day.
hours a day. Or his
and-
brothers doing their 30
Exactly.
minutes to get their food
Exactly.
or get their meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
so that's around, so he went to school around 1979 then when he was about 10 kind of thing?
He was 10. Yeah.
Okay. And
Uh,
what was that like? Was there a
Oh.
reason why, like, did the program end at age 10, or
No.
did you choose
We-
that
yeah. We went as far as we felt like we could go. He hadn't
Okay.
made a lot of different progress in about the 9 months or so before that.
Okay.
And Jim and I decided if we were having any more children, it was time to do that. So Michael started school on the 3rd of January, 1977, actually.
Okay.
And Rebecca was born on the 19th of January.
Okay.
So he still doesn't like her very much, but she's the one who's
That's too bad.
Well, that's why we're moving to Alberta, because the good news is that Michael really likes her husband, Nathan.
Okay, good.
So that works.
So there's hope. There's hope.
Yeah, maybe. That's why we're moving to Alberta, because when we can't manage him any longer, he'll live with Rebecca and Nathan.
Right, okay.
And they moved to Cochrane from Montreal 2.5 years ago.
And Cochrane, no, I don't know Alberta geography well enough. And you're dropping this now. So I know that you are planning to move out west in the next little bit. And Cochrane, I gather, is a community outside of Calgary. Is that?
That's correct. It's
not the
just
Cochrane
west.
Here, where that's way far north, right?
No,
okay.
No.
Okay.
No, this is Cochrane, Alberta, which is just west of Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now the school that he went to in 77, was that a local school? Did he have to take a bus to another school, or what was that experience like?
He can't do a bus on his own.
Okay.
He had drivers for 100 years. Well, maybe not quite 100.
Yeah.
But
felt like 100.
Until COVID, he had drivers from 1979 when we first started. Well, okay, that's not quite accurate. What happened is at that point, they kept him in Lawson School, which was, by some definitions, real school.
Right.
As opposed to an adult development program or whatever, right? So he started in Lawson, and they're no longer eligible for school after they're 21. So when Michael turned 21, I invented a program, actually, which we called Advocacy 21. So I worked with David Pitt and Gary Pruden, whose names I'm sure you recognize.
Indeed, I do,
unless you're really young.
Well, thank you for wondering if that could be the case, but I know them both. I know them both well.
Yeah. Well, the three of us basically put that program together and got government money, only for 1 year, but we did part-time service for 6 people. We hired 2 staff and did part-time programs for 6 people for that 1 year.
Okay.
But then at the end of that, that's when we went into the adult development program part. So Lawson School till he was 21, and then Advocacy 21, and then.
And I guess now was this in Community Living Toronto, our Lawson program in Scarborough? It used to be run in partnership with the school board for a number of times. Was that the case?
Correct.
That's what Michael was attending?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then at some point that partnership ended, and the Toronto School Board went mainly with inclusive schools, sort of classrooms or integrated classrooms within local schools. And they also had a number of specialized schools. So Michael was in Lawson throughout his education in elementary school and into secondary school.
Right. Till he was 21, at which point he became ineligible for that. That's as long as they would.
So he would take a transportation, get a driver from Scarborough into Lawson every day.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Did you ever, or was it an option to explore a local school closer to where you lived at that time, or that wasn't something that was really possible?
No, it wasn't an option at that
early
point.
80s kind of thing.
Yeah. But to tell you the truth, I would hate. I was a teacher, okay.
Yeah.
Before,
okay.
And so I can tell you that to have Michael in a classroom with normal kids would have been a disaster.
Really,
a disaster. I mean, there are lots of kids with handicaps who can manage in an integrated service, but Michael never could have.
Right.
He doesn't dress himself, doesn't talk. So I mean, he makes a lot of noise, but he
Yeah.
doesn't speak English.
Okay. Okay. So he did that until he was 21, and then with this in the classroom at Lawson, and then when he turned 21, what happened then? How did Michael continue on with things to do during the day?
After Advocacy 21, he had a spot in an adult development program.
Okay.
So he was in an ADP. Then there was a big waiting list at that point, and we took the option to have a 3-day program in the ADP,
Okay.
and the other 2 days a week he went to the home of somebody I found. It was then called Special Services at Home.
Yep. SSAH. Yes.
Yeah, the program. So I found a worker who was part of our church community and who Michael knew already. And he went to her house, and she had normal kids who came to her house for lunch and after
Right.
school. So I felt like it was kind of a good mix to have him in an
Okay.
ADP 3 days a week and then hanging out with normal kids on the
Okay.
other 2 days a
So
week.
the ADP program, was that with Community Living Toronto or another organization? It was
Yeah,
Community Living Toronto.
yeah.
And was it where was he doing that, in North York or in Scarborough or what, at Lawson or
No, not at Lawson. Lawson, we finished with Lawson at the
at
end of the
21?
school.
Okay.
Yeah, the schooling. The ADP, we started on Champaign. So I guess they were
Okay. In North
all
York.
the ADPs were in North York.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Good.
there have been, they have closed and opened and
Yeah.
moved around a little and whatever. So,
Right.
yeah.
So he did that from 21 at an ADP 3 days a week in
Right.
a sort of formal program, and then 2 days a week with somebody from your church
Right.
that was a local neighbor, I guess. Now, were you working at this time as he was doing
No.
that, or were you raising the kids and stuff?
No, I was raising kids.
Great.
So we had Rebecca when Michael was 10, and then I don't have one kid at a time. I have two.
Okay.
So we also had Matt later,
Right.
2 years later.
Great. So
Yeah.
and Michael was in the ADP for many years, and that worked with you. Did he get 5 days at some
No,
point?
we opted to stick with 3 days a week, and we're still
That
doing.
worked. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Since COVID, 3 days a week is the maximum you can do. So
Right.
I was. Look how forward looking I was.
You were decades ahead of where things were heading. That's good. So you talked about that's a fascinating story, and everybody's story around raising their children is different, and then you add on a disability on top of that and different circumstances. Everybody's story is fascinating and interesting. So thanks for sharing that. What were some of you talked about sort of the journey. What were some of the big challenges or turning points that you found with Michael throughout his life or throughout your journey there? You seem very determined, very, it sounds like you're the type of person, you put your mind to something, you're going to make it happen. So I'm assuming that there were times when you felt like, oh man, what do I do next, or who's going to support me, or how's this going to work out? What was that like?
Well, there were plenty of those 12-hour days when I thought, am I out of my mind here? Probably the biggest challenges that we had were that in hindsight, we learned that there were 2 periods of Michael's life where he had seizures, a lot of seizures.
Oh, no. Okay.
Turned out that was going into puberty and coming out of puberty, but we didn't see that until he was, a few years past it all, and we could look back and say, oh, look at that. That's when it was. So, so we had a family dinner yesterday, actually, and I told my other kids that were here that we were going to do this today, and so we hauled out some family stories. There are some pretty good stories.
Anything you want to share?
Well, I can tell you one. Michael reacts inconsistently and unpredictably to pretty much any kind of medication.
Okay.
So there was one point where he was in and out of seizures all day this one day, and I think we went down to Mount Sinai that day, and
Right.
the doctor there gave me some kind of medication, the name of which I do not remember, but with all kinds of cautions. Don't give him more than one of these. Don't be surprised if he sleeps for 18 or 20 hours
Oh, wow.
after he takes it. And he hadn't been sleeping. He had been having so many seizures that he would just come out of one for a few seconds and go right back into one. So he cautioned me enough that I was scared to do anything, and went home and thought, I don't think I'll do this, but then I had to, because it had been like 3 days like that, and it was just too much. So I gave him a pill, thinking, okay, he'll go to sleep now, and he'll sleep for 18
hours. Yeah. Ooh, brother.
2 hours later, he's up walking down the hall.
Okay.
And didn't go back to sleep, but the seizures quit. So
really? Okay.
It stopped the seizures, and he slept for 2 hours, which was probably the longest that he'd slept in the 3 days in between. And it broke the cycle of the seizures.
So it was sort of all the benefits of a medication without the side effects. That's
I don't
always
know. At that point, I would have thought sleeping for 18 hours was a really good thing.
But you took the two. You made the best of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. So, you talked about sort of the evolution, how things have changed throughout Michael's life in terms of approaches and programs. And you've been going to community participation, CPS, in North York for the last little while, since I guess since things reopened
COVID.
after COVID,
Yeah.
right? How's that going? And maybe you can describe what Michael's week looks like, and how that's working for you and Michael and your family.
All right. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we go to CPS. It's about a half-hour drive from here, and we're driving now. There are no more drivers, as I'm sure you know. Although, let me just stop long enough to say the drivers were a very positive thing in many cases.
Okay,
in a few cases, not. But there were two that were outstanding. One was Carlos, when Michael hadn't been in the ADP program for very long, but he also worked at the ADP where Michael went. Right. So he took Michael swimming and stuff. Michael loves to swim.
Right.
And so Carlos was right in there up to his eyeballs the whole time. and then just about at the end, there was a woman named Esther, and Michael loved Esther.
Okay.
But of course it was because Esther loved Michael, right?
Right.
I mean, she loved all those kids. She was wonderful.
Great.
Anyway, okay, so that's a separate thing. So now we're driving, and he has to deal with us whether he likes us or not. So we drive him and drop him off, and this has been extremely well organized and well received, and excellent staff. This is probably his happiest part. As my son Warren said yesterday when we were talking about this, Michael is always very happy. We call it school, right? Because that's easy.
Yep, that's what he.
So Michael is always happy to go to school every single day. He is happy all the way there, and he's happy when we pick him up, and he's excited to go every single day. Warren says, unlike most other kids who go to school.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, did you choose that, or was that that's what worked for you?
Yeah, that's what has worked for us. We have chosen that consistently all the way along.
Okay.
We could have organized it a little bit differently, but Iris, who is his special services worker,
right,
has had him Tuesday and Thursday for 30, however many. Oh,
years. He's still going to Iris's twice a week.
And
wow,
of course,
what a relationship! Wow.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't have other kids anymore. Right. That went the way of all good things, but she's had a couple of dogs, and Michael likes her dogs,
Okay.
and he's
She
still going there.
That relationship outlasted special services at home because that program hasn't
That's
been
exactly
for
right.
adults for more than 10 years. So
Yep, yep,
that's
yep.
great. So
We
it
call it
went,
passport now, but it's still Iris.
yeah, same idea. The
Yep.
now the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, what is Michael doing at the location when he's
My
there? Do you know offhand what he
my
likes
stock
most or what he's doing?
my stock response is I don't care what he's doing. He's loving it.
He's loving it. Good.
I know that I mean, we check off boxes for the programs with each,
Right.
whatever they call it, semester
Right.
of the CPS. And he does art stuff, and he does music stuff, and he does
Yeah.
cooking.
So he's
And a
picking
lot
a
of,
couple of classes on both
yeah,
to complete the day, and then
he's not picking them. He's
you're
not
picking them.
picking them.
Right.
I'm picking them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing that he does consistently there, for which he is becoming quite famous, is that he walks the staff around. He
Okay.
likes to walk. He likes to go for walks.
Good.
And there have been a few times when we've picked him up and heard that Michael has walked around the circle in the building for the last hour and a half.
Oh, wow. It's
So
getting some
Colleen walks
exercise
with
too.
him, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
staff are happy to do whatever he wants to do,
Yeah.
which is more than he can say for me most of the
Good.
time.
So you've been through quite a journey as a family, and Michael has as well, and quite varied experience. Now you're at a point where you're moving out west, and that has a lot to do with thinking about Michael's future. Or are there what else
Uh,
is behind the move, or can you talk about that?
Michael is the moving force.
Okay.
Two of our sons live here still, and I have to not think too much about leaving them.
Uh,
But Rebecca and Nathan are there with their family, and it's not fair to dump all of it on Michael at once. So as
right.
long as Jim and I can keep him, we'll get him out there, and as fast as we can, we'll get him into programs. Our daughter has done research out there to find out what's available, and apparently there are programs that are available for him. But of course, there'll be the 3 months before we can get a health card, and then an assessment, and then I will get him into a program as fast as we
So
can.
so part of that is your own family circumstance and dynamic that works better for your thinking long term, but also there's no guarantee that there's anything available for Michael when you and Jim aren't able to have Michael living with you at home anymore. Is that part of your thinking as well?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. He'll live with Rebecca and Nathan when we can't handle him anymore.
okay,
And it's just a matter. I'm 82, Jim's 84. Michael's 56. So we've been doing this for a long time.
yeah,
But we felt like we need to get him out there and get him organized into programs and stuff, as long as he can still live with us, so that he
right,
doesn't have to do it all at once. His favorite thing is to do today what he did yesterday. He
right,
likes the routine. He wants to know where he is all the time and who's around him, and just be comfortable with the circumstances. So
yeah,
we felt like we needed to get him in a new place to live, and then we'll find
yeah.
him a program as fast as we can before he has to move to
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've got a good circumstance that you're moving towards and that you'll be moving into. But it is, I have to say, as a provider and a person living in Ontario, it's discouraging that you had to move provinces, and quite not the province next door either, right? Alberta's a ways away, to get the supports that you feel comfortable with for Michael in the future.
Well, it's not really that. I mean, if we could have stayed here, we would have.
Right.
What I have said to my kids all their lives is, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it.
Right.
So, that's basically where we are. Our sons who live here are not in a position to take Michael,
Right.
and we feel that it's better for him to stay with a family member.
Yeah. Yeah.
Than rather, he's had a couple of week-long experiences in group homes and
Yeah.
things, and he hated it,
Yeah.
I mean, he really hated it.
Okay.
So we'll keep him with the family, and that's what's really moving this. It doesn't really have anything to do with Ontario or
Okay.
Alberta.
Okay.
It
Well, that's good.
it's the family dynamic, and
Yeah.
that's where Rebecca and Nathan are, and that's where he'll go.
Yeah, and
So
there's a lot of excellent services and supports in Alberta, so I'm sure Michael will thrive,
I
and
hope so.
and you and Jim will fit in. You'll have a different hockey team to cheer for, maybe. I mean, they're more successful than the Leafs have been, but that's good for families that are starting out or midway through or at a certain point in their journey. What do you have any advice that you would share and pass along?
I don't know specifically. I think just find out as much as you can find out. I think it helps a lot to talk to people. I'm sort of over the situation where I talk to other parents and whatever a lot, but I did that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was part of parents organizations. I think it just helps to be in the same room with other people who have similar circumstances,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be able to say this worked for us, try it out,
Yeah.
or conversely, this did not work for us. So that's probably the thing that I would suggest the most, is to be in touch with other people.
Right.
I was in it up to my eyeballs for a lot of years. I am not so much anymore.
Right.
I'm tired. I can drive him to the program. That I can do.
Well,
I can show up to the Christmas party.
yeah. Well, you may feel tired, but I tell you, you've got a ton of energy, and it's been you're an inspiration for the energy and enthusiasm and positive attitude that you're bringing to life. So that's been great. I'm gonna end with one final question that we ask everybody. Be curious to know what belonging means to you.
Okay, well, belonging it to find a situation where you can be who you really are,
Hmm.
and make that work with the people that are around, and the programs that are around. Our church community is important to us,
Hmm.
and that has been consistent over the years. And so that's a good deal of our belonging.
Right.
Uh, Basically, that's it. To be
Okay.
comfortable in whatever situation you're in, or to get into a situation you can be
We are
comfortable
comfortable.
in, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you and
Well,
getting
thank
to know you. And on behalf of Community Living, thank you for 30 years or more of being involved and for your advocacy throughout the years. We wish you nothing but the best as you move out west and build a new space and life for yourself and Michael out there. And be sure to stay in touch.
Okay. We'll be around.
Good. Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're surely welcome.
Okay.
Many people in our community, especially parents and siblings and other family members, spend a lot of time thinking about, wondering about, even worrying about what the future will bring. What happens when there's a crisis? What happens when a parent who's the primary caregiver can no longer provide support? What happens when someone passes away? What are the responsibilities of siblings? Where will people live? Will they be safe? Who will love them? These are big questions that people deal with every day. And I'm optimistic that as our sector continues to plan for Journey to Belonging, I really hope that this is a consideration that we give a lot of time for, and that one of the outcomes of Journey to Belonging is giving parents and siblings the confidence about what they can expect for their loved ones in the future. Thanks for joining our Community Chats podcast. And remember, we release a new episode on the 15th and the 30th of each month. So don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Don't forget to join us next time as we unpack the power of community through collaborative initiatives and shared experiences. Available on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Audible, and YouTube. Follow us on social media at CL Toronto. Let's chat, share, and spread those good vibes together. We hope these discussions will inspire you and give new ideas to add your voice to our mission of making our communities and neighborhoods inclusive and welcoming.